WeRiseMag.com.
Are vast differences in how cosplay is perceived and sort of handled in different countries, but then there are also really amazing similarities that kind of like break the bounds of cultures. So I wanted to do a panel on that because I think that where cosplay used to be more of a thing that you do within maybe even your state, even your region of where you live, now it's become this global phenomenon because of the internet and because you can, go on websites like DeviantArt and AC Paradise and you can meet cosplayers from all over the world and you can see just how huge it is, that it really truly affects more than just, the country that you live in. So I think cosplay has become bigger along with the convention culture. So first of all, looking at the culture of geekdom, culture of anime, video games, comic books and such, all of those things are becoming more popular, more known. And as more conventions start happening, and as those conventions gain attendees numbers, that's where the cosplay culture also kind of follows along with it. I first got invited to an international convention back in 2006. So that has been 7 years ago, wow. And that was to go to a convention in Mexico. And until that point, it was fairly rare for cosplayers to be invited as guests here within the US. It happened a few times, but only certain conventions that wanted to promote cosplay actually invited cosplayers out and would like to pay for them to be at the event and do panels and such. The convention in Mexico, it was called CMJC, and it was held in Monterrey. It was like the first time where I've experienced what it's like to be a true guest at a convention. I mean, you were treated completely different. I was there with a few other cosplayers from the US, and we had our own bodyguards. We had, let's see if I can pull up some pictures. This is from the same convention, but this was in 2008, so I went back multiple times. And we had bodyguards, we had a translator, which was important because we didn't speak any, Spanish. And this is Pixie Kitty. She's actually here at this convention somewhere. Is that Jim? What the hell are you doing here? Sorry. That's so random. Never expected you to be here. Never mind. Okay. So that year, it was me, Brian Bowling, and Pixie Kitty. We were invited, and so it was like, hey, there were banners with our faces on it. That was kind of interesting, and never experienced that before. And we had to have autograph sessions, and there was like panels with our names on it. So in that sense, it was pretty cool. And they also had like a cool breakfast meet-up with us and local cosplayers and attendees. It was just handled very professionally. Let's see if I can find a picture of us. So signing autographs, that in 2006, 2008, that was pretty much unheard of here in the States. Even when cosplayers were invited to be guests, we never had autograph sessions because we're not voice actors, we're not in the industry. But in Mexico, they actually had, these cards printed up with our faces on it, and people were just asking for us to sign them. And it was just like, I have to first come up with an autograph, style. I can't just sign my name like I'm gonna sign my check. So that was kind of fun. And so Mexico kind of, I felt like, sort of revolutionized what it's like to bring in cosplayers from other countries. And now there are tons of conventions in Mexico. They happen around the year, almost as many as we have here. In general, Mexican conventions are a lot easier to make. All they need really is, they need a venue, which venues are actually fairly cheap to get. And then they need a, let's see if I can just like leave it on a picture. Yay, everybody. And then they need to fill it with some, you know, A-list to C-list guests. Sometimes they will actually, you know, spend money on a big name actor from the States. A lot of TV show actors are invited to Mexican conventions. And then they round out the guest lineup with cosplayers. Generally, their contests are pretty grand in scale, and you can win things like, you can win money at them. It's not just, you know, whatever they can get from dealers donated, or it's not just gift certificates, it's actually cold hard cash. So for a lot of cosplayers in Mexico, it's a way for them to recoup the cost of their costumes. Let me show pictures from TNT, because I was actually super impressed with this convention. This is another one. This was held in Mexico City, and they actually flew in a girl. Whoa.
Projected eye.
I don't know what's going on.
Tag!
Did something
It's
just...
rebooting.
But anyway, they actually flew in a girl from Italy to be a guest, Georgia, and me and another American cosplayer. And so, you know, again, they definitely treated us very well, and also the attendees kind of, they view cosplayers in a different light than I feel like here in the US. We mostly, cosplayers were fans, you know, we do this for fun, we do this because we love the characters, everybody's kind of on the same level. In Mexico, I sort of noticed that there's this culture of idolization of cosplayers, and it's not bad, it's not, you know, it's just different. It's just like a difference in how they perceive cosplayers. Like, if you're a great cosplayer, you can actually, you know, become an idol. You can actually have a pretty strong fan following, and when you go to conventions, you'll actually kind of be treated like a, you know, pseudo-celebrity. So, this is just with everyone that we met. We were judging their costume contest together, and they had Duffman. So, this guy, like, he shows up at multiple conventions dressed as Duffman, and he improves his costume constantly, and improves his skit. And I think after that time, he actually started painting himself yellow, so he was actually very accurate. Generally, conventions in Mexico are held in, they almost look like, well, they're convention halls, but everything is basically housed in one hall, like one giant hall, and they just use dividers to divide out the panel rooms, and they have like a stage in one corner, and then the rest of the hall is filled with dealer tables. And so when you go in, it's very crowded, it's very loud. When you're doing a panel, it's not like this where, you know, you have your separate room. Basically, you have like a plastic divider, and right outside there's karaoke going on, there's dealers, there's attendees screaming, there's like fighting going on. I mean, just all kinds. I mean, the fake fighting, you know what I mean, the LARP fighting. So it's a very, how do you say, they're very enthusiastic. So from that standpoint, I really like Mexico. The other thing that I noticed is that in Mexico, generally, there's no craftsmanship judging. Craftsmanship is secondary to performance. And that's actually something fairly prevalent at most South American conventions. Even like Brazil, Argentina, such, it's all about the skit. It's all about what you do on stage, and your costume. You know, it's better to have a costume that looks impressive on stage than up close. And it's also very cheap to rent out, or not to rent out, to hire out seamstresses and people to help you make your costume. Whereas here, if you were to get a costume commissioned and you wanted it to be fairly good quality, you're going to pay upwards of $2,000, you know, because it's considered an artisan craft. In Mexico, it's just, it's just, oh, it's just sewing help, you know, so they go to alteration shops and, you know, say, hey, can you make this for me? And then most of the Mexican cosplayers, they will make the wigs, they will work on the props, the armor, you know, different things that, you know, you can't just have sewn. So that's generally how things are done in Mexico, which kind of makes judging the contest a little bit difficult because you have to sort of take yourself out of that mental state where we're here. I'm like always looking at costumes, I'm always flipping seams, always seeing, you know, did you make this? Let me see your progress pictures. There, you don't get to speak to any of them up close. You just watch them come on stage, do a performance, and then you have to take notes on what you liked about their performance, you know, and if their costume held up during it. Again, it's just difference, you know, in how things are handled. But I did see some of the most impressive costumes ever in Mexico. Oh, here, yeah, definitely. He's yellow. And that was they actually had their World Cosplay Summit preliminaries. That was the first WCS prelim that we went to. We did not partake in it because TVIG, they judged it, they had their people judging. But it was just amazing to go backstage and to, you know, see the costumes and just see the quality of them. And I mean, this was back in 2007, so this was 6 years ago, and I think that some of these costumes are, you know, pretty darn incredible. And those girls were gymnasts, so they were doing crazy fights on stage in heels and in armor. It's like, what? So I definitely really enjoyed. Oh, one more thing that I love to talk about in Mexico is the use of fire and live steel is okay. And I would just, like, the first time I saw it, I was like, is this for real? Did he just set something on fire? Like, it becomes a little bit dangerous. But it definitely adds to, you know, the performance when you actually can hear the steel clanging, you can actually, you know, see sparks flying. So part of me is like, I wish I could use fire in a skit here in the States. That would be awesome. Cool. Okay, so that's Mexico. Let's see. After going to Mexico, I actually went overseas to Italy for a convention that was called Cartoomix. And that was a fun convention. It was organized by these ladies that own a wig shop. Well, they had a part in the convention, I should say. They had a whole section that was called Cosplay City, and they're the ones that asked me to come out. And I dressed up as Lum because Lum is one of the most popular characters in Italy still, and Yamato Shop, they were sponsors, so that was actually part of my job, was to dress up as Lum and help promote their shop. And what I noticed about Italy is they're very passionate, they're very, very good craftsmanship-wise, and but they're also very competitive amongst each other. There definitely is that air of competition amongst, you know, especially female cosplayers, and I've heard different stories about how oh, that's just us hanging out. Female cosplayers will, in Italy, actually make pages to pursue the idol lifestyle. Like, it's very, very accepted in Italy for any girl to become a cosplay idol. You know, you just have to work hard, make good costumes, and do a lot of photo shoots. And so cosplay is somewhat of a commodity there. And I haven't been to Italy since, so I'm not sure how much it's changed, but when I was there, that's just the experience I had. Oh, and they really like Lady Oscar and had a cool exhibit. So one thing that I definitely notice is, depending on the convention that you go to, the costumes that people make will be different because of what's popular in, you know, the different countries. So like in Italy, Rose of Versailles. It was like all about Rose of Versailles. There were several different Rose of Versailles groups, and also Saint Seiya was also very popular there, which, you know, these are things that we here in the States don't have access to. So to see what people cosplayed was a reflection of what anime and video games people really liked, you know. And so you definitely see different trends depending on whatever country you're in. I also noticed in Italy, after each skit, you know how here we do our skit, or you see somebody doing this skit, and then you kind of like, oh, take a bow, okay, you're gone, and then next skit. In Italy, apparently, after you do your full performance, it is completely necessary for everybody to strike a pose and actually give photographers about 30 seconds just to take photos. And so like these poses are all perfect, you know, these group shots, they're all after they finish doing their skit. And I'm just like, I wish we would do that here. That would be really nice, you know, because that's one thing that I always, you know, am frustrated with. I can never get good pictures of people on stage. But hey, at least we're the hosts of the costume contest. So it's much better when they actually take time. See, they do a really nice pose. So I think we should implement that here in the States somehow. And they had really giant groups. This was like the left side, the left half of the bleach group. So, and then also a giant Trinity Blood group. Okay, cool. Let's see. Any questions so far while I'm just talking? I've talked a little bit about Italy, Mexico, which I think Mexico also, you know, falls within, like, I've been to Brazil once, and Brazil was very similar. It was like really awesome, big costume contest. Whenever you see that I don't have very many pictures at a convention, that means I'm usually having too much fun to take pictures. So, like, these were just from them. I just never even got time to take photos. Yes?
Do you also see different portrayals of cosplay and mass media in the other countries differently than is done in the US? And which kinds?
Difference of mass media portrayal of cosplay? Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, I think it's different depending on the culture or the country that you're in. I think overall now, cosplay is perceived fairly positively in media here in the States as well as, you know, in other countries. I'm noticing more, you know, TV stations and media groups coming out and do little coverages on conventions and cosplayers. I did notice that in Germany, apparently, it's still not very accepted, and that it's sometimes can be frustrating for cosplayers to see a report on a convention, and then they specifically pick out, you know, the extremes to take footage of. So I think that definitely is a reflection of, you know, how popular even geek culture is in that country, and. I mean, I went to Germany a few years ago for a photo shoot, and and that was my first time actually talking to German cosplayers about cosplay, and they all said that it is actually very difficult for them to walk down the street in costume, and people sort of just kind of, you know, completely can't even handle it. And, you know, if possible, they always try to change very close to the convention. They try to not take public transportation in their costumes. And, but I mean, that was a few years ago, and I went back to Germany last year, and I thought for you know, for the most part, cosplay was really accepted, at least like in the hotel and the convention center that I was held in, and you know, people were just like hanging out outside in costume, and it seemed totally cool. But I think definitely depends on the city or the region that you're in. I would say that what actually surprised me the most was how cosplay was in Japan, because it's like, obviously, since I started cosplaying, I've always wanted to cosplay in Japan, you know, the origin, you know, country of cosplay. Oh my God, that would just be a dream. And so I thought that if you went to Japan and you dressed up, it would be just like, oh, okay, well, you're just in a costume, whatever, you know. I grew up reading that manga, or seen that anime, I know that character. But it's actually incredibly segregated in Japan. And so the first time I went and cosplayed, it was in a theme park where the way the cosplay events work there is you don't really have that many conventions. You never have a convention that is really specifically cosplay. You only have toy fairs, you only have Comic-Cons, you know, those types of conventions, or you know, Tokyo Game Show. It's never an event that's devoted to cosplay or where cosplay is accepted into it. So what they do is the cosplayers will rent out a venue. They'll rent out, you know, a theme park. They'll rent out a building, you know, a garden, anything. And they basically, you pay about $15 to come in. You bring your little suitcases. All cosplayers bring their little rolling carry-ons. You never ever dress up outside of the event. You don't come in already dressed up. You have to go and change in their designated dressing rooms. And I always thought, I was just like, you all know what cosplay is. It's very prevalent in your country. Why is it taboo for you to walk around in costume? So, but it totally is. If you do not change in the dressing rooms, you come in costume, it actually can, you know, it can, I don't know if they can go as far as, you know, kick you out of the event, but it's really frowned upon. And even though I did go and change in one of their dressing rooms, which is not a dressing room, it's basically a little locker room where they put tape in squares on the floor. The squares are actually about as big as these squares in this room. So you get your little square and that's it. So you have to change in front of the other women, and there's no mirrors, there's nothing. You just have to change. And of course, me being my first time there, I didn't think to bring a mirror. So I'm like, how do you put a wig on without a mirror? You know, so it's like somebody had a hand mirror, so it's like this tiny hand mirror. I'm like trying to make sure it's straight. And you just have to like not be modest and just like change in front of everybody. And but in my case, the costume I wore was Faye Valentine from Cowboy Bebop, and apparently that was a bit too racy because it was in a theme park. So it was like I got in trouble because I was showing, you know, I think my bra strap was showing, and then she's like, no, you can't have any cleavage, and no, you can't really show this, you know. She basically wanted me to put the red shirt that Faye has wrapped around her. She just wanted me to put it on and like button it up, and I was like, okay, that's like gonna be the frumpiest Faye ever. And so we kind of like found little corners to do little photos in and kind of broke the rule a little bit. But it turned out okay. The other thing I noticed that day was that the cosplayers don't really interact with each other. And it's not like you walk around and, you know, there are attendees like here at a convention that will actually take your photo. It's basically an event just for cosplayers. And in Japan, they actually are very good at taking their own photos. They'll take each other's photos, or they'll, you know, bring a boyfriend along who can take photos, or they'll just set up the self-timer and they can do all kinds of crazy artistic shots, apparently, just with the self-timer. So that was really impressive, I thought. But I was just really surprised that, you know, you don't really talk to each other. You talk amongst your little group that you're with, but you don't go out and seek other people, you know, accidentally do something that takes your time. It's like overt politeness, I think. So the next time I cosplayed in Japan, I had a little bit different of experience because I went actually to Tokyo Game Show, and I've wanted to cosplay at Tokyo Game Show for many years because I've always seen people posting photos with that same, that wall, that one wall with that one background, and I knew that was the cosplay area, and it was like became this iconic thing where I was like, I want to stand in front of that wall and take photos. And so at Tokyo Game Show, it's the same thing. You're not allowed to change in the bathrooms. You're not allowed to come in costume. So the only way, like when we first arrived in the morning, the only way you could tell who cosplayers were people who had no makeup on and had suitcases with them. It was like, oh, there's a suitcase, that's a cosplayer, you know? And so everybody lines up and gets into the dressing room and changes, which actually I went with my friend Ricky. She's dressed as Miki. I'm dressed as Chun-Li, and actually we could not find the dressing room. No one spoke English. We tried to ask several people, and so we changed in the bathroom, and we actually got in really, really bad trouble because there were signs in the bathrooms in Japanese that says no changing, and because I know Chinese, I could see it, you know, I could understand a couple of characters. I was like, okay, we gotta be fast. Basically that sign says we're not allowed to change here. So we changed, and people were waiting in line, and they were, you know, giving us looks. But then we, you know, went and did our thing at the convention. By the way, this is the wall, and this is the very iconic area. It's basically the little walkway between the buildings at TGS that people cosplay. It's the cosplay area. And at the end of the day, one of the staffers came up, and we asked them, because at that point we had a translator, we had the translator ask him, so where are the dressing rooms? Because that way we can change back into our normal clothes. He's like, okay, they're over here. And then he like stops, and he like squints his eyes, and he goes, wait, so you don't know where the dressing rooms are? Where did you change? And we're just like, we changed in the bathroom? And he's like, oh, and he got really mad. I think he was like about to ban us from coming back or something. And we're just like, we're gaijin, we don't know. We don't speak Japanese, we tried. So it's very important if you ever go to Japan, change in the darn dressing rooms. But at TGS, I got to experience the wall of photographers, and this literally is like the one picture that my friend was able to get. And this is literally something that I've seen photos of, that I've heard stories of, that in Japan you have a wall of photographers surrounding you. And I was just like, it can't be any worse than here in the States. You know, I've gone to Dragon Con, I've gone to Comic Con, I've had a wall of photographers. No, like in Japan, it's a freaking wall of photographers, and it's all professional. Most of them are professional cameras, and these giant lenses pointed at you. And what happens is you literally find a little spot within the cosplay area, and what's supposed to happen is a line is supposed to form in front of you of photographers, and each photographer is supposed to take a photo of you, well, basically ask if they can take a photo of you, take a photo, and then move on, and the next person comes up. And I was like, I never got my line. I was looking forward to having a line, but I never got a line. I got a wall, and it was like this never-ending wall that as long as you posed, as long as you did any sort of a pose, they kept taking photos. And I was thinking, you know, here, some people, you know, they take 5 or even 10 photos, right? And they're like, okay, let's move on, see what else is going on. In Japan, no. I mean, literally, I think at one point I posed for about 35 minutes, and I was freaking exhausted because I was going through every single pose that I could think of that Chun-Li would do. You know, and some of them include, you know, like high kicks and such, so it's kind of exhausting. And I just was like, I can't anymore, like, what do you do? I was just literally like, what do I do? I don't know. And they're all just kind of like waiting with their cameras, like, what is she gonna do next? And finally, my friend came to the rescue, and was like, okay, I'll do a countdown for you. I was like, what the hell is a countdown? So he starts counting down in Japanese, and as soon as the count hits, you know, 1 or 0, then they all leave. They literally all just disperse. I was like, huh? It's just like, really bizarre. And he was like, yeah, this is, you know, when you need a break, when you, you know, are need a little bit of water, that's what you do. You have somebody do a countdown for you. And I was like, okay, I need like 20 minutes to rest up now. But it was just like a really incredibly hilarious experience to me. And I was like, I know, they were taking photos, close-ups of whatever, I don't care. You know, I was wearing 3 pairs of tights, I was super covered. But what also surprised me was afterwards, some of them would like send me the pictures. They would like somehow find my email and send me photos. And, you know, in broken Japanese or in broken English, you know, write sweet little messages. And I was just like, okay, next time when I go to Japan, I gotta be better prepared. So I would like to maybe do this again, but definitely needs to be, you know, like now I know what's going on. And this is, by the way, a little bit of TGS. Yes, Jim.
So in Japan, how do they do like larger props, like wings or big weapons or stuff like that?
They come up with very creative ways to carry them.
Okay.
And most of them are made to be very, very light. And actually, we have a little bit of time I can talk about that. I don't really have any photos of it. I have photos on my Facebook, and I have a video somewhere, but at TGS, they actually did something that's called Cosplay Collection, and it's a stage show. And the entire time that we were rehearsing and trying to come up with some sort of performance for it, I did not understand what it was until I was there. And so the story goes that I was asked to participate in this cosplay collection, which is a stage show, and I was like, okay, so is it a contest? Is it, you know, are we competing? They're like, no, it's not a contest. It's just basically cosplayers coming together and performing on stage just for fun, and it'll be, you know, you'll be recorded, and you know, it's just going to be a good time. And so I asked Ricky and Alodia to do just a quick Marvel vs. Capcom skit with me, because we all had costumes that sort of matched each other. And we get there and we realize that it is an all-day event. Like, you have to come in and go to a special room area where you have a meeting about it. Then you have to get your lineup. Then you have to basically just wait there for hours for it to be your turn to rehearse. And you rehearse outside. You don't rehearse like on stage. They basically have an area outside that's masked off to be the same dimensions of the stage. And the entire time we're just like, we wanted to see TGS. We wanted to walk around and try the demos and play the games. Like, that's all we wanted. And we didn't understand why we had to wait the entire day to, you know, rehearse our 30-second skit and then wait more hours until it's time to suit up, get in costume, and then wait even longer to go on stage just for another 30 seconds. For someone like me who's been doing a lot of contests and as well as, you know, been doing cosplay for a long time, that just seemed like a waste of time. I'm like, I flew all the way over to Japan. I want to see TGS. Until at the very end of the night, I realized, talking to some of the other cosplayers, that doing stage performances in Japan is incredibly rare. And a lot of Japanese cosplayers, whenever they have a chance to go overseas to either an American convention or a European convention, whenever they have a chance to go anywhere else, they actually love cosplay much more in different countries. Because in Japan, it is so segregated, and there are so many rules and so many regulations that they sort of take the fun out of it. And so, you know, for Japanese cosplayers to have the chance to do a stage performance, you basically have to enter the WCS probably, and you know, or you have to basically do this TGS cosplay collection. That's like maybe once a year if you are lucky enough to get chosen. So like 95% of the time, they're doing costumes, you know, in those designated little cosplay areas and deal with their wall of photographers. and the rest of, they just don't have any other variation. And after I heard that, I was like, man, I'm really grateful that our conventions here actually dedicate, the main events for hours for an actual contest, that we have the chance to make a performance if we want to. We have the chance to, enter a good contest and receive some sort of accolades. And I became really grateful for the fact that we can actually walk around in costume, like, without problems. Because, like, in Japan, you can't walk through the convention in your costume. You have to go to the cosplay specific area. And if you have to walk through a hall, somebody asks for your picture, you're not allowed to stop. Like, I was trying to stop for a picture for someone, security was literally like, okay, move along, move along. So, I don't know, I was like, it was a cool experience to cosplay in Japan, but it was also a little bit like, this is not really what I expected. But they do have a giant Gundam. So that kind of makes up for it, So I wanted to talk about Germany a little bit more, specifically because I felt like finally when I went back to Germany to Konichi last year, where they held the World Cosplay Summit finals, that was when that was the first time in a long time where I felt like I went to a convention where cosplay was exactly what I wanted it to be. And it was like I don't know if it is the German, ingenuity. I mean, the Germans, they're perfectionists, and everybody there had beautiful, perfectly made costumes. And, I really admire German cosplayers in general because they all seem to be very successful. They have great careers, and then they have time somehow to make these fabulous, amazing costumes. And I'm just like, how does this happen? Like, what just the sheer amounts of people that had amazing costumes was staggering to me. And I thought it was really incredible how Craftsmanship was it was such an, highly honored craft. Like, people really appreciated each other's craftsmanships. And that's actually where I found, where I talked to the person that owns the Cast for Art company that supplied the armor making material Warbler. And this material, I know I've been advertising it like crazy on my website, and I've been making a costume with it. But it is a thermoplastic that is incredibly easy to use. It's not poisonous, you can literally do it in your living room just with a heat gun. You can cut it with scissors. And it's a material that I thought really revolutionized cosplay over in Germany or over in Europe, like where you can get this material. You could see tons of people had cool props, cool armor, cool accessories, all made out of Warbler. And through going to Konichi, I actually, did whatever I could to actually bring Warbler over to the States, because I think that having material like this could really help us up our craftsmanship and up our skill level a bit. And I think it's something that, we definitely could benefit from here in the States. So I'm trying my best to continue selling and continue stocking it in my store. But I think that also shows that when you have access to a specific material, it changes the entire culture of cosplay. It changes the entire community of it. Yes?
How much is it?
Warbler, it's imported from Germany, and I'm just doing a consignment. So, this is the price that they set. It's $60 for a giant sheet. To make a full set of armor, you need about 3 to 5 sheets. But if you think about it, even if you spend $300 or $400 on it, that's a full suit of armor that you did not have to sculpt and mold and cast. And because the sculpting, molding, casting technique, even though it is so successful, it is very difficult to deal with. It can be very expensive and time-consuming, and requires special tools, special skills. Whereas with Warbler, it's a crafting material. It's something that anybody can pick up, if you have enough patience and don't mind getting burned a couple times. And so I really think it's great. Yes?
I have 2 questions on Warbler.
Uh-huh.
One
put D-rings basically I make little D-ring tabs that can slide in, and then I glue them in. And because hot glue actually, hot glue and Warbler actually work very well together because it's all heat activated, and it really bonds material together. So then I put elastic straps on the D-rings so that it gives me some flexibility. Or you can do straps with Velcro so that, when it's Velcro, then it gives you a little bit of room to work with. But there are actually video tutorials online about attaching Warbler, and I do want to make a tutorial video or several myself. I just literally needed to have one project that I've worked with it to learn how to use it, So now that I've done something with it, now I feel more confident that I can actually make a tutorial video and show other people how to do it. So, but it can get heavy depending on how many layers you put on it, but it's very sturdy. I think it's sturdy enough that, some people have even come up to me and asked if they could maybe use it in LARPing, if they could actually maybe use it in, faux combat, and, I don't see why not, So yes, you should all make armor with Warbler. But yeah, I mean, that really is just like, for example, in some of the other countries, I get people lamenting that they do not have the resources that we have in the States. There's like, I cannot get fabric, choices that you have. I can only get 2-3 types of fabric. If I need spandex, I have one type of spandex I can work with. Whereas here, if you go to Spandex World, you can choose from heavy to lightweight, to sheer, to nylon spandex, and it's just, the selection that we have is really incredible. And I mean, when it comes to cosplay, I always tell people, it's like, use what's at your disposal. You have so many resources that you can pull from. It is staggering what we have here. It just takes some thinking outside the box, really. And some patience and some research. I'm always like, how do you want to make a costume? Do some research. Spend about 4 or 5 hours on Google and, look up different tutorials and websites. And that literally, YouTube, you can learn anything on YouTube. Anything you want to do, you can probably learn on YouTube. It's incredible, that people put these videos up and tell you step by step how to do it. I think it's great. It's all about sharing. I wanted to, in the last few minutes, talk about the change in cosplay culture here in the US. Because I think that is really interesting. This is our country, this is our community. I was talking to somebody yesterday about how I've been in this community for so long that I have literally seen different eras. It's like, I call them eras because they really kind of are. They're like these little mini eras where at the beginning we had a mailing list. I mean, I'm talking 13, 12 years ago. We did not have Cosplay.com. We did not have any community websites. We had a mailing list where people would post photos and ask for, how do I do this? And no one knew. It was just like nobody knew how to do anything. It was all experimentation. And then we got into the fans view era, where if you made a costume and wore to a convention, you probably will get photographed by Kevin Lillard, and he will probably put it up on fansview.com the same night. And so that became a way for the people who couldn't go to the convention to see what was happening, because he was updating his website, so quickly that it was almost like real time. You could see what was happening at that convention on the other side of the country. And then Cosplay.com was formed. Around the same time, AC Paradise was formed. And so all of a sudden, we have 2 big community websites where cosplayers can meet each other, they can discuss things, and everybody started posting photos on Cosplay.com and ACP, and so that was the Cosplay.com era. And so now, I mean, we went through the MySpace era a little bit, where cosplayers would post their photos on MySpace, but I feel like now, really, it's all about Twitter and Facebook, right? I mean, that's basically where it's all at. And if you're a cosplayer who you know, is taking it fairly serious, then make a fan page. You know, that's everybody has a fan page now. DeviantArt is another really great website where you can, you know, look at absolutely gorgeous cosplay photography and see things that you never thought were possible. And so I feel like we're definitely we're definitely reaching the next point in cosplay. And I have some premonitions on where cosplay is going to go next, but I can't really talk about it yet. But cosplay is becoming an industry. It took a long time for us. You know, we're very behind from Japan, where cosplay has been an industry for decades. But here in America, cosplay is becoming an industry. People are becoming commodities. Skills are becoming commodities. You know, it's something that's only going to grow bigger. So in the next couple of years, you're going to see a lot more things changing in that direction. So for some people, even for me, I fought the changes for a long time. I was like, no, I don't want anybody to know about my little community. I just want to keep cosplay the way it is. But now I've sort of embraced the changes. I've sort of realized that you have to change with the community, or else you're just going to be really unhappy, or you're just going to stop. And I'm like, I don't want to stop. I want to keep making costumes. So, you know, hopefully the changes will be positive, but only time will tell. So, thank you so much for coming, for listening to me babble for an hour long. I have another panel tonight at 5:45 in this room, and I'm actually going to talk a little bit more about all of that, and it's because it's my sociology of cosplay panel, and it's my favorite panel that I do. And I'm going to be talking about, you know, why people cosplay, the different types of cosplayers, and that should be really fun. So you should be here, 5:45, okay? Thank you. Awesome.
WeRiseMag.com